Do you find yourself thinking in the beginning of the year, I can't plant seeds yet because I live in Canada? Well, I garden in Canada too, in Zone 3, and I'm gonna go through all this and I'll be showing you which of these you could start in the month of February and which seeds you shouldn't be planting because they'll suffer indoors. The first crop is your onion seeds and celery seeds. Last year, I started some onion from seeds, and those onions grows into the biggest onions that I've ever grown. The lesson that I learned is that you have to start your onion plants from seed and that you must start them early. Now, starting onion from seeds could be a bit tricky. I struggled starting onion from seeds for a few years because every time I'd start them, they just kept dying. For a while, my onion seeds would not germinate no matter what I did, and at the very best, I only got a few of them, if any. I was using old seeds, and with onion seeds go bad after just 1 year. So before you start sowing, you want to make sure that you're getting a fresh packet of onion seeds. The second bad thing that I did was last year when I would start my onion seeds, I then placed them under my grow lights with my tomato plants. Onions grow slowly, and since my tomato was growing at a faster rate, every time I have to keep raising the light, and my onions was getting farther and farther away, which caused them to die. Onions also like a cool temperature, and the light I was using was producing too much heat for the onions. One time though, I noticed that as I was walking by our LED grow light, onion plants that was growing under the LED did not die and they grew healthier. Moving on to celery. Celery is one of those plants that you don't really need a lot of to grow. Last year we grew way too many celery, and a lot of the celery ended up having to go back to the compost. So only start as much as you need. Per person, the average person would only needs about 5 to 6 celery plants, and onion seeds could last, I think, for 4 to 6 years. I'll put whatever it's up here on the screen for you. So this one packet of onion seed could last you many years. So crop number 3 is actually the world's most popular fruit that you already know. So take a guess of it if you want. That fruit is tomato. Now, whether or not it is a fruit or a vegetable, I'll let the comments decide that. But when is the best time to start your tomato plants, and what tomato plants should you start? The word tomato actually came from the Spanish word tomate, which came from the Aztec people word, which is jitomal, which was the Aztec people language. So, jitomal means plump thing with a navel, which is the end of the fruit with the flower. The Aztec people lived in Mexico, and the early explorers was the ones who brought the tomato to them. Opposite to what you might think, the first tomato that the Aztec people grew were actually a yellow or golden orange. Fast forward to today, and nearly all the tomatoes that we know is red. But as home gardeners, there is a bunch of different varieties and colors of tomatoes that we could buy and grow in our garden. Some new tomatoes that I'm going to be getting this year to grow is the Berkeley pink dye tomato, and I'm also going to be trying to grow the Cherokee purple tomato, which is a very popular tomato for home gardeners. Now, when it comes to starting tomatoes actually like the heat, but they can also tolerate some cold temperatures during the nighttime. I found that starting my tomatoes later, my plants grow better, and so now I start my tomatoes 6 to 10 weeks before my last frost day. I also have a full video that I'll link to above and below on a full guide on starting tomato that you could watch, and it'll teach you everything you need to know about starting tomatoes. Seed number 4 is one that you shouldn't sow this month. If you're starting your cucumbers at the same time you start your tomatoes and pepper plants, then you're starting your cucumbers wrong. Last year I wanted to get some cucumbers earlier, so I took a risk by planting my cucumbers out earlier. But what ended up happening is my plant backfired because the weather wasn't warming up. Because cucumber plants really hate the cold and will not tolerate any temperatures below 10 degrees Celsius. Temperatures lower than that will cause the cucumber plant to start yellowing and then it'll die. When you start your cucumber plants early, it puts you and your cucumber in a tough position. Your cucumber plants are ready to be planted outside in 3 to 4 weeks, which is half the time it takes your tomatoes or your peppers to grow. Seeds 5, 6, and 7 is going to be your squash, and your pumpkins, and your melons. Now, you don't want to also sow these seeds this month. Your squash, pumpkins, and your melons are in the same family as your cucumber plant, the cucurbit family, which means that they can't tolerate the cold either. Tweaker's out in the greenhouse today. So, Tweaker, what do you have to say? Let's see if she'll eat some of this spare bread we have. The Uyghur. Show them your cool tricks. Make sure to peck like in the comments for Tweaker if you like seeing her. And comment the word planting so me and Tweaker know you're watching. Seed number 8 and 9 is your hot peppers and your sweet peppers. Last year in October, I was just harvesting my one and only ripe bell pepper, and my hot pepper only just started flowering. Your hot peppers takes way longer than your sweet peppers or your bell peppers, so right now in the beginning of February is when you want to start them. Your sweet peppers could be started later in February, or if you live in Zone 6, you could start your sweet peppers right now. Some of the hot peppers that I'll be starting this month is I'm going to be starting this red habanero, and I'm also going to start this datil hot pepper. Seed from crop number 10 is one that is botanically considered a berry. This berry color skin is a purple dark color. If you guessed blueberry, then you're wrong! If you want, you could try give it a guess again. Eggplant is what we call it here, but you might also hear it be called aubergine if you're living in a different part of the world. Now your eggplants won't take as long as your hot peppers to produce, so you could start them at the same time you do your bell peppers. Seed number 11 is going to start changing directions, and we're going to start talking about a few crops that you only have to plant once, but it'll produce for ages. The first of these is asparagus. Have you seen all your favorite gardening YouTube channels on their asparagus have this red thing? Well, not that, but thanks for thinking of that for me. In a moment, I'll tell you what that thing is, but growing asparagus the new way that I'm about to share with you means even bigger harvests. This new way of growing asparagus I'm talking about is by growing all male varieties of asparagus. But what does that even mean? Asparagus is kind of like your cucumber plant in that instead of being monoecious like your cucumber is, which is having separate male and female flowers on the same plant, your asparagus is dioecious, which is like separate people, so you could have a male asparagus plant and a female asparagus plant. Now we don't actually want to grow the female asparagus because they waste energy on producing berries instead of producing asparagus for eating. Berries that they produce are also poisonous, so you can't either eat them. You also wouldn't really want your cats or dog eating them because it could harm them as well. All male varieties of asparagus to grow are Jersey Knight, Jersey Giant, Mondero, Gulf Millennium, which is a Canadian bred asparagus, and Jersey Supreme, which will be grown in colder zones. Now sometimes you won't be able to find all male asparagus crowns, so you'll have to grow them from seeds yourself, and you want to start those this month. Crop number 12 and 13 can also be perennials, which is rosemary and lavender. If you live in a warm zone, I'll put the zones up here that you could keep rosemary and lavender in. Last year, I started rosemary and lavender from seed, and they took very long to grow. Now this is my rosemary plant after growing all of last year, and you can see it's very small, which is why it's important that you start them early. One more do not sow crop for this month is your bean seeds. One year we started some beans indoors in a pot and it was too early. The beans started out with quick growth, but it wasn't as strong or healthy. Compared to when we direct sow a bean, the beans that we plant outside grows up our trellis fast and they produced a lot. Here, you can take a look at how much it produced. Pole beans need a trellis to grow and bush beans don't. But I wouldn't really recommend starting your beans until May or June if you live in a zone like mine, or if you live in a milder zone, just start your beans around your last frost date or 1 week before. The 15th seed is one that is packed with so much energy for you. Potatoes is one of the easiest crop to grow even as a beginner. Unless you was me, I somehow managed to mess up growing potatoes. My first time growing potatoes, I had planted some potato, but I never got potatoes from them because we left them in the ground to overwinter and the worms came and ate them. Last year, me and my brother started our potatoes indoors in April, and the potatoes we grew from them was a huge harvest. Now, I won't be starting my potatoes this month, but if you live in zone 6 to 9, you should start them this month. But how do you start potatoes indoors? Well, watch this video next where my brother will show you how to start your potatoes so that you can get big yields from them.